Okay, I think it's gonna start. Are you working with Japanese customers or Japanese business colleagues and you never get a clear no, only a lot of maybes, but then things just don't move forward?
If that's the case, we have some tips for you. We would like to help you understand why it's happening like that and what you can do with it.
Hello,
こんにちは.
my name is Uli.
I'm Yuki.
We are posting now our first video together. And we thought we are going to talk about something that a lot of customers frequently ask us. And it's usually about communication with Japanese and why it's quite often so vague, why you don't get a clear no, and how do people understand the difference between agreeing or disagreement with Japanese.
Yeah, because if you're not familiar with how Japanese people talk, it can sound very vague and unclear and then sometimes very confusing.
Yeah. Well, do you think that's about politeness?
Yes, it is really big part, but maybe we can just collect some comments from the clients that they often deliver to us. They say sometimes like, I don't understand why they don't say no when they cannot do things. Or they say okay, but things do not move forward at all. It's quite puzzling for people who are not familiar with Japanese people. It feels like very much, what do you want to say? No? So nothing clear. Uri-chan, do you have any experience that you can recall?
Well, actually, yes. I used to work as an assistant for a Japanese company, assistant to the CEO. And I had one day a situation where one of the German engineers, a senior manager, walked into the office of the CEO. And I happened to overhear the conversation. That senior manager, the engineer, he had an idea for a wonderful project that he wanted to do. And he wanted to kind of persuade our CEO about that project. And I overheard that conversation, and our CEO constantly said things like, little bit difficult and maybe and things like that. But that kind of engaged the German engineer even more. He kind of said, "Oh, yeah, I know it's difficult, but there are these ways and these solutions to overcome these difficulties." So that meeting ended at some point, and he walked out of the meeting. And then it happened later that day that I met him again, and we were kind of friends. And I asked him, "Well, how do you think did that meeting go for you?" And he said, "Well, actually, quite good." And that was a surprise to me because when I overheard the conversation, it was kind of clear to me that our CEO was not really too excited about his project ideas. And he said, "Yeah, of course, there are difficulties. That was clear, that was stated. But I'm going to work tonight on these difficulties. I'm going to show him how to overcome these difficulties because there are ways and solutions that." So yeah, it happened then the next day that the German engineer walked again into the office of our CEO. And then, of course, the confusion was completed. Yeah, the CEO at some point had to admit that he's really not too excited about the project. And the German engineer was, of course, quite disappointed because he put in extra hours of work and extra effort to make it happen. So I
Yeah,
think that's a classical example of a misunderstanding.
yeah, that is true. But it's quite interesting to hear your story. You could listen between the lines that the boss was saying no, right? And then you have a lot of experience with Japanese, so you could interpret this indirect message to meaning no. But the German engineer, he doesn't have this experience, so he just received the word as itself
Yeah,
and then thought that there is a chance.
yeah,
And then he is very challenging motivation. So he's getting very motivated so he can persuade with a better plan. That's what happens often, not only with this case, but also any other areas of work. And then it's because simply there is a different communication style in Japan. Can I explain a little bit of background
Yeah, yeah,
that you
please
touched
go
about
ahead.
politeness?
That's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could sense there is a politeness factor in the communication that the boss used. And in Japan, because our communication is based on politeness, which comes from relationship, respecting each other. And then not only the personal life, but also the business life, we often adopt this communication style of relationship harmony. And what we try to avoid is to hurt someone's feeling. And saying no to someone's request or wishes is too rude for our standard. So we often drop some indirect, vague, unclear sentences to mean no.
Mm.
But the difficulty is that we are saying it, but the other part, they are not receiving the way we wish because we are using simply the different style of communication.
Well, that's really a really nice explanation how you explain that now to us, yeah. And I think that also helps then for Europeans to understand why there is not a clear no. But then, of course, the
Right.
question comes up, how do Japanese say no?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And maybe if you hear this phrase, you can connect to, oh, wait, here is a yellow lamp blinking.
Yeah,
Maybe they want to say no. So some of the typical phrases, you're familiar with it,
yeah.
Ulrike. So
Yeah. I
you want
mean,
to give some
the
example?
most typical one is if someone says like a little bit and a little bit difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Difficult,
They
I think,
even
is
say
the
a
key
little
word, yeah.
bit, right? Yeah,
How would you
yeah.
say that in Japanese?
ちょっと難しいですね。And if I hear this sound, this sentence, then for me it's already stop.
Yeah, for me too, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Anything
of,
else?
but of course, for some other people who are not used to it, for them means difficult is difficult, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard that in German standard it can be yes, it can be no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the other one is also like, I will think about it.
考
Like,
えておきま
I'm
す.
gonna think about it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we use that. I think sometimes Europeans or Americans, the Western culture communication, they sometimes put it this way, but in Japan, the degree is higher. If we say I think about it, it also means stop.
Hmm. I mean, quite often in meetings, I also hear something like, "Well, let's discuss it another time. Let's, yeah, talk about it another time." So this
Yeah, yeah,
postponement thing. What do you
yeah,
think about that? Is that also
yeah.
a typical no?
Yes, it's a polite no, I would say. And then in Japanese, we often say, ah, mata kondo.
Yeah,
Or they can even say like, ah, and nothing, silence. Yeah, so it's not even the word, but it's just a tone. And then we drop those things just to not to say no,
yeah.
but wishing the other party to get what we want to say politely.
Mhm.
Stop.
And then I have another thing that I've observed really quite often, especially among Japanese men, is like this, like,
Yeah, they scratch the head, right?
and they do that noise, this sucking up the air between the teeth. Is
Yes.
getting all tight. And
Yeah,
then,
that
I mean,
happens
that's,
often to men, not women.
no, yeah, I haven't seen it from women. I
Yeah,
think it's
good
a
observation.
typical
Yeah.
thing for what men do, don't they?
Right, right.
It's
They
different
often
from
do
them.
howl, no? Yeah. Yeah, that's a body language that you
Yeah,
can
somehow.
observe. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So, shall we probably give some practical tips for the listeners what they can do when they sense this, oh my God, this is Japanese no coming.
yeah. So I think it's really quite important with Japanese that you read between the lines. Yeah, you kind of try to understand the atmosphere, what is going on, and not only look at the words or listen to the words that are said, but yeah, read the whole situation. I think it's also quite important if you don't understand what's going on that you don't try to push further to get a clear announcement, because this clarity that especially Germans have in their communication is just not gonna happen. And if you kind of push and try to have a clear no or a clear yes, then that can make them even withdraw more. That's my
Exactly. This
experience.
is what
Yeah.
I see often. The more, for example, the German business people, they really like clear yes or no, and that's all what they're seeking. But Japanese parties, this is the area that they don't do it. And then the more the Germans push, the more the Japanese might withdraw. And then Germans try to push, and Japanese try to answer as much as possible. In the beginning, I'll think about it. It can be difficult. And then in the end, silence. Yeah. So it doesn't work for the both parties, no? Yeah. And then in such case happens, you get frustrated, puzzled, confused. But the effective way to deal with this kind of situation is actually give them a time and space,
Mhm.
because many times Japanese people, they need a lot of coordination internally at home for consensus building that involve every parties that involved in this project and harmonize the opinion to reach this conclusion collectively. And
Mhm.
this can happen also not the working level business people, but also decision making people who have decision making role. It is custom in Japan to do the decision-making process, or before we deliver any concrete answer, we do this process of harmonization and then conclusion collectively, and then including everyone's opinion to form an answer. Then we are ready to give the answer.
Mhm.
So it takes a lot of time. And then Ulrike and I often recommend clients to plan this time ahead in your project plan so that you don't feel frustrated that the project delays or not meeting the timelines. No? So this is the time and space that we need in Japan.
Yeah, well, that's probably the next topic, Millie, that quite a lot of customers of ours ask. Yeah, it's like, why do we never get an answer? What's going on in the meetings? Yeah, so all that process is nearly a topic for a different video. But
Yeah.
a lot of people also confuse that with the communication. And so, yeah, so I think we gave now a few ideas of what can be done. So everyone who listens to this video, you know now what the typical answers are for no is like a little bit difficult, like little bit difficult, or postponement. Yeah, let's talk about it another time. Are typical ways how you understand that people don't agree.
Yeah, by respecting the way you communicate, also try to respect the way they communicate and try to understand. Then you can see the bigger picture, and then both parties can work more harmonious way and actually enjoy working together. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you feel like it, we will be happy to hear your comments, so please feel free to share your experiences in the comment section.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, and see you soon with a different video about another
See
topic.
you! ではまた。
じゃあまたね。